All right. Happy Wednesday, guys. How is everybody? Good? Good, good. Okay. So this week, I promised I want to get into it just because I have only an hour today and I can't do an hour and 20. Get going here with this. We are recording. All right. Last week, I gave you guys a class on basically like pausing the program and looking at the unwanted circumstances, the unwanted conversations, the unwanted feelings, the unwanted, reality that you're seeing around you, to take that position of God within you and stop participating. That was like the main idea. And I know that's easier said than done, but the more that you start to, it kind of happens in stages. First, you're going to notice you're witnessing yourself reacting. Like, I'm reacting to this. That's good. That means that there's a part of you, that observer is watching that small you interact with the program, even though you don't necessarily want to. It's an automatic sequence at first. So it'll happen in stages. And so then what you'll be able to do is move into that conscious place and physically be able to, I mean, even if you have to like create some symbol or something just to take a pause, take your breath back, right? And then this is where notes, affirmations, ideas come in. And this would be where you're going to be looking at this story as an actor of a movie. It's that important, right? And it's almost like, if you don't realize that you're acting, right, you're never going to be able to change your life as that actor. The only way that you can change your life is to change the actor. Okay. And when we're talking about consciousness, what that means is change of mind, right? So there's basically two minds. There's two operating bases. There's two virtual reality games that you're playing here. And it's basically two minds. It's the mind of God, and it's the mind of, I don't know I'm God. I've forgotten I'm God. God doesn't love me. It's every other story. So that's going to fall into the category much bigger of what you've been playing out. And that's going to house all of your needs and your wants. Okay. God wants for nothing, and he needs for nothing, or she needs for nothing. So anytime you are needing or wanting, you're actually not in the mind of God. Simple, right? Like, well, if I need it or want it, I'm not operating as the actor that is. So I want to make this as easy as possible for you, because like, I know we've all known this and grasped this for like a really long time, but there's something that happens in studying and studying and studying and studying and studying, is one day it just clicks. You know what I mean? It's just like, how many times have you studied this? How many times have you heard this? But I will say, if your higher self is not embodying, you're not going to get this. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to know this on a logical, linear, like intellectual perspective. You're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. But you will not be able to truly have wisdom with this. You won't be able to live as this, because this whole idea of what we're doing here is to get the higher self embodied, so that the lower self is not constantly telling the body who it is. I'm hungry, I'm lonely, I'm broke, I'm bleh, right? And so the body is going to follow along with whatever the I am is, because the body is the mediator. It is the middle, it is the servant of the mind. That's what the body is. It's the servant of the mind. And if there is only two minds, I am creator, right? And I need a creator, right? Like, you can see the separation there. So if you can get to the point where you're like, no, this is not my story, this is not what I want anymore, then it could take just a simple shift in practicing changing your mind, which is the true definition of redemption. The true definition of redemption is just a change of mind. So who is the divine you, right? Who is the you in God form? We know who you are in ego form. Okay, we know who your inner child is. We know who that spiritual angelic space is when you're doing good things and when you're kind and when you're being generous. But who is the divine God within you? Have you taken the time to really get to know that? And see, this is why this last year I have been rooting for you to repair your relationship with God, however that may be. Repair your relationship with mother, father energy, whatever that may be, because it's going to fall into the category of creator. And as your lower self believes, you were created by your mom and dad. As your higher self believes, you were created in the image of God, which was you. Okay, you designed you. You set forth, you picked the body, you picked the circumstances, you picked the names, you picked the backstory, because you knew you needed to start in the Adam and Eve game and you would move into the Christed game when you woke up from it. When you decided and you changed your mind that you don't have to suffer for some root original sin. Okay. When you decide that suffering isn't part of the game here. But there's two minds. There's the world's mind and then there's God's mind. So God has his own economics. God has its own healing abilities. God has its own creatorship. And then the world has its belief systems, right? In the world, you believe that as you get older, right, your body gets more broken down, that you age, that, illness is just part of germs and bacteria, that money does not grow on trees, that, suffering is kind of normal. And these are not even necessarily all negative beliefs I'm giving you. These are your basic, like fundamental jaded thoughts that you don't really say, hey, I don't know if I want to believe that or not. But when you start to rise in and start to kind of download God's mind within, which you will not be able to do if your relationship with God is in somewhat wounded category. If you've had a falling out, if you feel God's not been there for you, it's going to be really hard for you to access the mind of God. Sitting in God's shoes, okay? That's where you want to be. That is ideally where you become source creator, source code writer. You're creating your virtual reality by the mind that is seeing the wish fulfilled, which means if the world is split into, and we call it me, myself, and I, but the truth of it is the body is focused like a satellite with whoever is thinking. So if small self is thinking, the body is turned towards the thought because that's the energy, okay? Like it's the energy in motion, the emotion. Body's going to turn to where the fuel source of life is. And if it's, I don't have enough, the body will turn towards that. It doesn't care whether it's true or not. It needs an operating basis. It needs a focal point. It needs energy. So if I'm constantly looking at what I want that I can't have, though I'm in the world's mind. So if I'm positioned as God, I'm going to have to study what that mind is. And that's the Christ consciousness. And so this is why I wanted you guys to watch The Chosen, because we've all watched that at some point and been like, I resonate with Jesus here, right? Because that is ideally the symbol of the mask of God, right? Anything he needs, he's got, right? Like he had no wants and needs. He wasn't walking around looking for his next meal. He wasn't, he wasn't in judgment of anybody's stuff. Like he created miracles and helped people everywhere he went, and so he had the mind of God. And so then the 12 fractions of your mind are his 12 disciples, right? Listening, will, judgment, life. And we're going to unpack those probably in September. We'll do the 12 discipleships of the mind, which if you can get your hearing on board, right? Which is Simon Peter, he represents hearing, understanding that your subconscious mind is hearing everything all day, every day, no matter whether it's true or wanted. Do you know what you're hearing? And are you discerning what you are hearing? Are you living in a home where the news has to be on and you just don't think that you're listening to it? Your subconscious mind is. Okay. Are you around negative people even though you don't interact? Your subconscious mind is listening. You see, so you have a listening mind that is recording 24/7, whether you're participating consciously or not. So what you put in is what is determined, well, who you are. So that's why your hearing has to be discipled. It has to be disciplined. You have to cut the fat. Like, do I need to be in this room right now? Now, here's where obligation, commitment, right? This is where even like, well, it's compromise. When you're in a loving relationship, you have to compromise. Or, you know, you have to speak your truth and tell people why you don't want to be around the news. And that might make some other parts of you uncomfortable. But you will never be able to have the mind of God through willpower alone, because will is only one fraction of the mind. You got 11 against you, possibly. So will is just one aspect. You cannot willpower your way from not downloading negative content. This is why I've been saying all year, who you're around, what you're around, even like what movies you're watching, what intake you're taking, okay? Even if it's entertaining, you want to say, is this helping my subconscious mind believe I'm God? That would be a great question for you to interview your moment or your friends. Okay, are these people I can practice my God mind around? Or should I maybe just stay at home? Because the thing is you can't half-ass this. One of the things about moving into the Christ consciousness is it's only one God. You can't be wishy-washy. Otherwise, it's going to feel like what I explained in Quantum Fitness Part 1. The 3 levels of consciousness are like grounded in an airplane, turbulence, which is where most of you are right now, and then the free flying, you know, you're free to walk around the cabin. You know, it's like you're up in the air, like 30,000 feet, and yet you're not worried. You're like, where's the snacks? Like, you know what I mean? Look at that mindset that you're in when you start to sail, okay? You're like thinking, well, I gotta go to the bathroom. Like, you're not worried about the pilot. You don't even know this dude. He's flying an airplane with hundreds of people in it. And you're like, what am I gonna watch on Netflix? See, that's God's mind. No worries, satisfied, right? It's just like, but then think about the turbulence. Can I trust this guy, right? It's like, should I have not taken this flight? Did I get a sign earlier? This is where all the witchcraft and confusion comes in. And I would say that most spiritual people live in the turbulence, because what turbulence is, it's resistance and it's push-pull. Force against force creates turbulence. So you've got the lower mind saying, I am broke. And then you've got higher mind that you've been working for 30 years in your spiritual studies present saying, I'm God. That creates the conflict of what we would call that turbulent reality. So in the higher mind you get, the more you uproot all of the lies about yourself. And see, this is why when you start to go towards the Christ consciousness, all hell breaks loose. Because everything that's been hibernating, that you've been pushing down with addictions and shopping and relationships and whatever, when you start to go to God's mind, you're not chasing addictions. You're not instant gratification yourself. And so what you do is all those things you were using to hold the negative mind away has been unleashed, because God's mind says, no problem, I can deal with all that. But that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't feel like you can. You know, it's like you start to go into God's mind where everything is finished, where there's a solution to every one of your problems. Not only that, it's already done. It's already done. You know, when they make a movie, and I've been behind the scenes, they write the script, they pick the actors, they build the sets. I mean, it's so much done before they say action. You know what I mean? And they prepare for everything. Okay, if this weather happens, we're doing this. Okay, if she gets pregnant during this, we change the script to this. You know, they prepare like down to natural disasters for movies, because they are budgeted in time and money. So it actually works in their favor for them to be overly prepared. right? You may have a call at 2 o'clock in the morning so that by the time 6 hours of hair and makeup, you get that 10 minutes of daylight that they need. And that's all they do for the day. Then right before everything goes, they do a table read, which means all of the actors read through the script together. And that's where the emotion comes in, right? That's where they start to play off of each other's characters. And so if they don't have the table read, they won't know how to respond truthfully to the script in the motion. Now, in your movie, you are everyone at the table, everyone. The conflicts will bounce off of your greatness. So there is no one but you, okay? And the script is based on who you believe you are. We're going to be teaching a lot about, like, Neville Goddard calls it self-aspect. And I think that's a great term, because ultimately your self-aspect is what generates the script. Your self-aspect is the actor that you're playing here. So if you're reading, okay, I am unworthy, great, put it down. Well, now the script says she's unworthy, but trying to find her worthiness. That's not what you want to start off with, because you'll always be in the world's mind. And in the world's mind, a new problem is waiting for every solution solved. Have you noticed? Every time you solve this, this pops up in the world's mind. Because in the world's mind, it's not win-win. It's someone has to lose in order for me to succeed, right? I have to take something away from someone. I have to lose something, because the world's mind is built out of lack. Okay. God's mind is built out of abundance. All right. So I think it's the week of the 18th. We're starting our spiritual prosperity 3-day webinar, totally free. I advise you guys to hop on there and get a hold of it, because I'm going to show you guys that this is where we really unpack the mind of God when it comes to ability to create and manifest money and opportunities and things like that. But for today, it's so important that before you get out of bed in the morning, like, what is your master plan? Like, who are you today? In the Bible, garments stands for something very important metaphysically. Garments means mood. You know me, I'm always telling you guys that it really matters what you wear, how you carry yourself. When you wear something that makes you feel more royal or fit or happy or pretty or healthy, you hold your body differently. And remember, your body is saying, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? You put on something that you feel good in, okay? And all of a sudden your body's like, I feel good. Because your body doesn't see anything other than how you feel. And how you feel dominantly creates the algorithm of your health. You know, you're talking about something, right? And you're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you look on your phone, there's ads popping up. There's streams that you've never plugged into before because you were talking about something. Your body does the exact same thing. So imagine that your subconscious mind is blind. The only way that it can decide what is by how it feels. So if you have a lot of emotion and you're in a bad mood, okay, the mood represents the garment. You're wearing a mood. You're wearing the garment. So you're either going to be wearing the world's mind or you're going to be wearing God's mind. And those are the only two choices. Even though I break it down into me, myself, and I put the middleman in there because we want to see what our mind is doing to our bodies. Okay. The mind that you live in the most dominantly is the biography of your body, down to every health issue. Okay. So this weekend I was up at the Black Hills with my guy, meeting his family. And of course, you know, I'm never around people who aren't like me. You know, I mean, I'm a weirdo, but I've created a colony of weirdos. And so I don't have to have like the world's mind conversations very often. But, you know, I'm looking at these people that are maybe a year older than me. And they're talking about their laundry list of health issues, right? Totally normal. Oh, yeah. They're almost like comparison and competitive. Well, I had gout. And it's like, it's literally so, it's almost like expected. Like they kept saying, so what about you, Jess? Did you get that? No, I didn't get COVID. No, I don't have that. And no, or like, I don't wear reading glasses yet. And no, and so it's like all of these things I couldn't join in the conversation because like, I'm not aging like the world's mind, and I'm goofy and I'm silly and all these things. And then they're like, oh, you drive a $90,000 car. And I'm like, yeah, because you play, right? Like, and so it's just like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, it's God's mind, but how do you explain that? And so it's just kind of awkward because they're wanting me to feel weird so their weirdness can feel normal. And now this isn't like my partner's direct family. It's just like people you associate when you go out into the world. It's like, oh, good, people our age. Like, people my age are old. What is happening? Like, when you're a kid and you hear someone say they're 30 or 40, you're like, oh, you're going to die soon, And then when you're our age, yet we feel younger because of those work that we're doing. We get around people our age and they're literally talking about people our age that are dying. And it's totally normal. And I'm like, this is weird, and so it was just really interesting because I had nothing to offer to the conversation, but nobody also was like, well, yeah, well, how are you doing that? It was almost like the world's mind was where they lived and where they were comfortable with. And I will tell you, the world's mind is where religion is. So you're never going to be able to access God's mind in your church, right? Unless you go to a church that's based in, you as God. And they do exist, they do, and they have existed forever. But again, when you're in the world's mind, God's mind's not going to be in your algorithm. It's not going to post in your social media because you're not focusing energy to it. So imagine every single problem in your life is nothing other than you were in the world's mind when you created it. Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel freeing to know that all you have to do is shift your thought focus from need to I am creator, right? And yeah, you might have to do some self-reflection work. You might have to do some, like there's something about the ego that loves bad news, loves it. I know you've been there where literally it feels good to feel bad. Okay. Or you have like beef with someone or someone triggers you and it feels so good to fester and sit in it and dwell in it. But if you knew in that moment with that irritating feeling and the thoughts towards others, because see, here's the thing, when you judge the sin of others, you take the responsibility of their sin. I don't know if you're aware of that, but because God says, you are all my children. And so it's almost like you're all getting punished. If one person does it and you judge them, I will punish you for judging them. So when you are like judging someone because they did something to you, okay, and then you go into a fester, then you are creating a reality where people have power over you. Instead of saying, okay, I need to find my reflection here. I need to see where I am in that person. That person just cheated me. Where have I cheated myself? See, that would be a God's mind thought. Okay. The world's mind would be, well, you can't be friends with that person anymore because they stole from you. Okay. Eliminate that person. So that's like eliminating someone from the table read and now you're not going to know how to deal when the next cheater shows up because they will. You will always replace your nemesis in your life story if you do not look in the mirror at the nemesis. Always. You'll always get another cheater. You'll always get another business partner with shady ideas. It's like you never get away from mom and dad, basically. Okay. You're going to reinvent that every time because the actor in the script needs that table of people. So if you say, I'm not going to play with you anymore, and you delete and block them, they have to hire a new actor to come sit at the table because it does not flow without all of you. But see, when you can say, okay, this is the person that's going to play the cheater in my life or the liar or whatever, and you could say, okay, where have I lied to myself, right? Well, now that person at the table integrates. And now, because that There's no place for a cheater in your movie. Your script has to change. And so all new actors have to be there. And now you've got people at your table that are generous and loving and kind and honest. So if we don't look at every single person in our reality as us, okay, and go through the redemption process, which is a shift of mind, you're not going to be able to forgive people that have hurt you in the world's mind, because that's protection. That's self-preservation, like Susan was sharing in our group last week. You're not going to be able to forgive people or, like allow people to be in your reality that are not healthy for you if you are in the world's mind, because that will hurt your self-preservation. That will damage your ego. So you're going to have to go into God's mind and see that person differently. And you're going to see that person as you. And so when you learn to praise instead of judge, you're clearing all of your own karma against yourself. So to get back on topic today, what I really wanted to talk about was that ability to be able to pause. Okay. And if you are not able to pause, you haven't studied God's mind enough. So whatever you need to do to study God's mind, I don't mean some author that you love who has a philosophy, but like the mind of God, like how God sees the world, right? And it's state of being, it's love, it's light, it's life, it's life-giving energy, it's expansion, it's creation, it's abundance, it's prosperity, it's opulence, it's knowledge, it's wisdom, it's generosity, it's care, it's kindness. This is the mind of God. Everything else is, well, I mean, I can be kind, but not to you. God doesn't work that way. So anytime we are in judgment of our circumstances or in judgment of someone in our circumstances, then we are holding ourselves in contempt, right? And when we do that, our conviction is that the problem isn't us. And so when God is waking up from amnesia, in order to stabilize the God presence within you, you have to take full responsibility and accept that everything you created thus far was from the world's mind, including your economics, including the health of your body, including everything that you're participating in that is not getting you younger, more beautiful, more fun, richer, all of the things that you are in your truest heart. If you're not becoming more of that, then you're living in self-preservation. And when you are in the world's mind, that's how you survive. Okay. And that's how we've survived. But being in self-preservation means that when the program is active, you have to participate for self-preservation. You have to defend yourself. You have to speak your truth. You have to write a letter. You have to make that phone call right now. You see, that's all based in, I must protect myself. God says, I don't like the story. Let's pause. Like the actor, cut. I'm not feeling this right now. I mean, you hear about these diva actors that make tons of money. They will literally stop the whole thing if they're not feeling the vibe. That's the kind of power I want you to have over your day. Stop. Nope, I'm not feeling this. This girl, she's in poverty. I can't do this anymore. I can't work under these conditions. I want you to be that diva, that actor that will not settle to be an actor that does not allow you to express your greatest qualities. Okay? Because it's not different. When you wake up from this dream, you're just acting. And you can choose hell. You can choose to walk through hell. You can live in the turbulence. And I would say that that's kind of where I was for a whole year, is I was living in this turbulence. It was like I would go to the mind of God and it would unleash all of these negative vibrations that I had put in people, places, and things. So I didn't have to accept it. I had to face all the dirty laundry, because through the eyes of God, you see everything. But when you get out of judgment, see, this is the key to ending the self-preservation here, is to let go of judgment and realize that anyone you're judging, even if it's just this like like a lot of religion, what I don't love about religion is they want you to fear God. And I just don't get down like that. That's like, I don't want my kids to be afraid of me. I want them to respect me, but I don't want them to be afraid of me. But I think what they mean there is a metaphor of understanding how powerful God is. It's like that appreciation. It's like that awareness, is the understanding of how powerful of a creator you actually are. You are such a powerful creator that you can stay poor if you want. You can stay sick. Now, it feels like in the world's mind, that's not hard at all. You know, it's like food will kill you here. You know, the people will kill you here. It's like you never get paid what you're worth here in the world's mind. But ultimately, when you're in the God's mind, it would take so much energy for you to be poor. You see, so it's perspective. It's just a perspective of life for you. And it comes down to when you wake up in the morning, you need to be the diva of your movie. And as your day rolls out, a lot of the day that's rolling out is going to be turbulence because you're raising your vibration. You're going to face the turbulence. But when you are in turbulence in an airplane, what do? You're seat belted. You're not allowed to leave your seat. You're not, let me go talk to the pilot and speak my truth about this turbulence. You're not doing that. You're trying to ground. You're trying to breathe. You're pausing from your own anxiety. You're motivating yourself. You're self-talking. Hopefully you're not doing shots of tequila and taking meds, right? But some people do that. What a lot of people do is they hold on real tight and they breathe and they calm themselves down. That's not such a bad idea on some of those days. Okay. Every time you feel discord, that is your inner GPS saying there is something that is happening that is going against the creator in me. And it does not require a response. Okay. It does not require a response or a reaction on the outside. It does require a response on the inside, which means if your inner child is freaking out, then your higher self is going to play the parent. And you're going to hold yourself and you're going to calm yourself down until you get back into your body through your breath. And then you're going to go into, this is not how this is going to go. Okay. And this is why practicing and getting to know God's mind is probably your best investment right now. Because if you don't know, then you don't have a perspective to shift into. You know, it's like in spirituality and in the science of mind, we study a lot of higher self. Okay. Now, this is even better because you all believe that you have this higher version of yourself that's in the future, already living all of your hopes and dreams. That's even better than thinking of yourself as all creation on a smaller scale, because who knows you better than your higher self? But see, your higher self is God. It's creator. And so this is why you would say, well, what would she do in this situation? How would she see that person that was judging us? Because a lot of the times, the reason why you judge is because you feel judged, right? And judgment is just self-preservation. It's a way to keep yourself safe. But God would not need to keep himself safe. You guys have all heard this quote, I'm not afraid of the storm, I am the storm. You've all heard that. That's what I'm saying here, is that conflict is not against you. That conflict is you. And you've got to unpack why that conflict either continues to happen or is happening right now from the mind of God. It will resolve instantly. And then what you will do is you will stop having the 12 disciples that don't know their God, the 12 aspects of the mind, the 12 people at the table, okay? The one that doesn't listen, the one that's judging you, the one that's stealing from you. Like, you won't have these characters in your life anymore if they're not in your mind. So this idea of mirrored coaching that we're taking some of the practitioners through here and there is this aspect of being able to help people see themselves in their own mess. Okay. Because as a life coach, if you come to me with a problem, and you say it's my husband or it's the money. It's not, it's you. So my job is to delicately hold the mirror up lovingly, caringly, without judgment, show you that you are the cheater, that you are the liar, right? And that's not a bad thing, because that's what we do to survive here in the world's mind. We've all lied, we've all cheated ourselves. You've cheated yourself out of a lot of amazing things to stay safe here. Okay, therefore, you will attract someone who will do the same thing to you to stay safe. You will attract liars if you lie to yourself. So if you hate liars, you better look in the mirror, because there's one sitting at your table and they are reading off the script, emotionally charged, to get you to respond. I mean, I've spent hours at these table reads and they're so boring, but they've got to get the emotional experience down to play off of each other, right? Like, what's going to inspire me to start crying right now if you don't trigger me? You got to read it in a way that's going to trigger me so it looks real, you see? So emotion, energy in motion is just energy charged, right? It's not necessarily bad or good. Your job as the one who can say at any given moment, I want to play God in this situation, is going to use God's mind, and that's going to respond differently. Now, this is the fastest way to hack your subconscious mind, because if you don't go with your programs, she will stop projecting them. If you stop responding, if you stop participating, right? And then you're doing your morning and your, afternoon and your evening hypnosis to get into that body mind, right? The body, the subtle body that is holding the character in place. You know how many times in my life, hey, sit up straight, get your posture right. And then the second you forget, again, because that's your character's posture, is I have to hide, I'm unworthy, and I don't want people looking at me. That's what this is. This character is, I don't care if people look at me because I'm confident and I know who I am. And your small self is going, oh no, people are going to look at us because our shoulders are in the upright position. You see what I mean? Like, just your posture. Because your body is holding the default character that you most play. And this is why if you catch yourself in the programs, you change your posture, you change your breath, you change your mindset. You say, nope, okay, this money thing keeps happening to me. I'm going to pause it, right? I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to go into redemption, which is I'm going to change my mind. And I'm going to look at this money situation from the mind of God, which is completely different. See, the world's mind is I have to find a solution now, or I'm going to die or whatever. But if I look at my money condition from God's mind, why am I creating this for myself? You see, why am I not accepting money? What is my character like? Self-preservation here? Like, what am I trying to hold on here? What righteousness am I acting out? If I have too much money, or is that going to hurt me more? Like, these are the questions that you have to ask yourself from the God's mind, because it doesn't make sense for you to cut off your abundance here. There has to be something that it's serving you somehow. And from a non-judgmental space, you have to investigate why it is that you are not accepting all of the abundance and prosperity that you have at your fingertips, right? And we should all be doing this right now, because, I'm not even out of these waters yet, because it's a constant check-in. It's a constant like, okay, why am I creating this? All right. And maybe you can't do it in the moment, but even if you can go, no, pause, I'm not going to go respond. I'm going to wait 3 days. I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to journal about this. I'm going to look at my table read here, see if this issue has been here before, because I guarantee you, see, the thing about your set down here is that everything's alive. Okay. So it's not always like a cheating person. It could be a cheating house. Okay. It could be a cheating car. It could be something that's a limit. You bought it and it's a limit, right? So people, places, and things all come alive in your movie. All right. Even seasons come alive. You could get sick every Christmas. Your birthday, everything could always go wrong. Your birthday is alive, but it's alive with the spirit of lack or pain, or what is it alive with? So if you can ask yourself, like in the morning, like, who am I today? Then what you'll do is now you're going to have to go against the resistance of your old movie. And you will be in turbulence a lot of the day. But if I tell you to expect that, maybe you won't be scared of it. You've got to hold your character, and you might have to unplug from everything and be like, okay, I keep creating this same scenario. Okay. Also, I want you to investigate the positive God's minds things that are happening, not just the negatives, because you really want to see like where it's easy for you to be in God's mind, where you're not so wounded and manipulated, right? Where is it just a flow? Where is it easy? Right? Like for me, health is, since I figured out my health a few years ago, like I don't have to go to God's mind to fix my body every day. Right? I just expect that if I'm loving and playful and happy, then my body will respond to that. All right. So that I don't have to govern, but I do actually investigate what I am doing right to keep my body healthy for the other areas where it's not so easy. Like, okay, what am I doing right over here to keep this flow going? Right. Well, first of all, I don't think about it. Easy, right? You got to think about money. Okay. So, okay, well, maybe I don't need to not think about it so much. Right. So it's really, this is where true conversation starts to begin with the me, myself, and I. Because if you're always in protection of the program, you'll never even think that you have the power to turn it off. You're always trying to fix it. You're trying to upgrade it. You're trying to be someone that's not, you will never, ever be able to change who your actor is because of the people at your table. Have you noticed you do all this personal development and then you go back home and it's like you're 8 years old and everybody's telling the stories of how you ate, mud, and it's embarrassing. And you're like, I'm different. But see, the people at your table are not, because what's that saying is your unconscious mind does not know who you are. And that's why people bring up your past. That's why the people in your past still hurt you, is because subconscious becomes unconscious through addiction and emotional repression. So the people that have hurt you the most, you have pushed them through the subconscious into the unconscious. And that's the scariest enemy you could ever have, because you're not monitoring it. That means it's going to pop up in your future because they're at your table, really, but you might not be in this interaction or this interaction. They might be over there interacting with other aspects of you. It's like a domino effect. And see, this is why when we live in the world's mind, we're hurried, and we're instant gratification, and we don't care. We'll get ourselves in debt for, quick fix, and we'll do all of these things because we are pushing our pain down. Okay. And we're constantly trying to outrun it. And the subconscious is showing you intimately, into me, I see who and what you are. And if we just keep eliminating people and places and things from our life, well, then the unconscious mind is going to start popping up. And it's like The Walking Dead. It's literally like you're being haunted or ghosted by your own mind. Have you ever met someone or saw someone that just repulsed you to the point where you were like, that cannot be me? Yes, Jess, I agree with the mirrored coaching, but not that. Okay. News is it is you. Okay. It's probably in your unconscious. And no, you may not behave the same way that they're behaving, but you have the same vibration. If somebody could be murdering someone from abandonment issues, you have abandonment issues. But see, you're repulsed when you see someone hurting someone for their abandonment issues, because you only hurt yourself over abandonment issues. And therefore, you're disgusted by their behavior, where ultimately it's you. So what I recommend is to understand that this table read is real. And you will never be able to live in God's mind if you're always watching your back around for people, places, and things. You want to just like walk through like, okay, God's mind, time to clean house here. Let's look at our circumstances. Let's look at the condition of our body. Let's look at our money story. Let's look at all these things through the mind of God, and let's start going into redemption here. Okay. Then you can go through your baptism, which is you are reminded. You have a new mind. All right. You do not have the world's mind anymore. You have God's mind. People that you see that are really successful, that seem very humble and kind and loving, they're not doing anything other than looking at the world through the God's mind. And they're probably working a lot less than you are, because down in the earth world's mind, okay, it's work, 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 work till your bodies do not work anymore. That's the slavery lack program. Work yourself to death. Okay. In God's mind is, why would we want to work when unless it feels like play, right? Like we want this to feel like play. We want this to feel like creative. We want this to be expansive. And so just making a list of every cast and character in your world, looking at your table read, looking at how they respond on each other, look at who you avoid, look at who you judge. And then you say, okay, now I've got to say, I've got to mirror up. I've got to mirror up in this table read, and I've got to find my self-preservation, my belief systems, my wounding, my trauma in every single one of these, and then go into the God's mind and do my own forgiveness. So I forgive myself for pushing that aspect into the unconscious mind. Because the thing is whatever you push away from your past will resurface in the future, because everything is you. And that's why if you're really like learning about the God's mind, it's to bless everyone, especially the ones that have hurt you, because you receive your own blessing. Praise everyone, even the ones that have hurt you, because you will receive the praise. So you may not be able to praise them yet, but you could find the aspect that is the same, and you could praise yourself. You could forgive that part of yourself. You might not forgive the guy that cheated on you, but you could forgive yourself for cheating on your dreams. You see? And once you forgive yourself, you make space, and now it's easier to forgive them. The only reason that you can't hold God's mind is because judgment. All right? You're judging people, places, and circumstances, and events, and things. And so therefore your energy is fractaled. Everything that you are resisting, avoiding, you're actually using a huge amount of energy to keep them away. So if you just let everything rip, which will happen in your turbulence. So to me, the cocooning, right? The caterpillar, you go in a cocoon, it's turbulence. There's been about a year of it. And it's constantly like push, pull, because I'm really starting to understand this God's mind. And therefore I'm starting to like talk and think and feel. But what it's doing, because it's such a high vibration, is I am resurrecting every dark part of me. That's like, it's like the greatest echo effect of all times. And like, oh, really? You're God? Well, what about me? Right? And what about me? And what about me? And what about me? And you're like, and but when you're in God's mind, it's like, oh, that's God's child too. And that's God's child too. And I can praise you, and I can forgive you, and I can bless you. And it starts to become so fun and loving that you replace judgment with intuition, because intuition is what you started out with. Like you had an intuitive, like guidance system inside of you that loved everyone, but also understood danger. You didn't really understand fear, but you understood danger. Okay. But you didn't judge. You did not judge a color of a skin, someone's bank account. You didn't even judge yourself. Yeah, walk around chubby with a bald head with a diaper full of God knows what, and you could care less. You were not judging yourself. But see, then you were taught, don't do that, don't say that, don't feel that, don't think like that. And so judgment was a way for you to stay alive here. Okay. Then you get into the spiritual community and you start judging the judger, right? Oh my God, I'm judging the fact that I just judged. And so it's just like, that's where all this turbulence becomes. And so if you can just unpack your circumstances and say, my circumstances are just this table read. All right. the events that have happened. Like I've been numbing them, and I've been, instant gratification, and I've been using addictions to keep these things away from me. But now that I'm moving into God's mind, none of those things really work anymore. Have you noticed? Like the addictions, the instant gratifications, it's not fulfilling. So now you have to go into God's mind if you're going to have joy, because you don't get joy from the hormone reaction from a dopamine hit off of a candy bar or a good idea. Like you actually have to be in the presence of your true self in order to truly feel joy. Well, this is the step to study God's mind, is to heal the mirrored consciousness. And then you will be able to live as creator, because it's just a mindset. Like everything is just mind. But mind is split into yin and yang. It's split into dark and light, life and death. That's, to me, that has helped me so much, because, spell casting, everything we say, when I look at things that are around me, if I go, is this life or death? That really helps me, because we're so jaded here to not only judge everything to death, but also give everything the benefit of the doubt. Have you noticed? Like judge everything, but also accept everyone. Like we're in this real jaded world's mind where we don't know, right? What's good or bad. Or so if you can say, does that create life or does that create death? Does that create expansion or does that create contraction? That will help you eliminate some of the judgment of bad or good, because God is life, everlasting, immortal life. The things that are the most praised on planet Earth are the things that are the most alive. Think about it. That's why certain beauty, symmetry, flow, right? Elegance, like all of these things are so appreciated here, right? And so whatever you appreciate appreciates. So when you look at the idea of life or death, well, being in that toxic friendship because, well, she was there for you during your divorce 20 years ago, is that life or death, right? So you got to go, bye, I can't do this. Now, remember, you might not be listening. Your subconscious is. So if you have someone you love who's watching news all day long at your house, you are getting that download, whether you like it or not. So just keep in mind, it's just like, do I say something and be the bad guy? Well, how am I going to know what's going on, right? Like that's what you're going to hear. How am I going to know what's going on in the world so I can be afraid? Okay, that's going to be a conversation you're going to need to figure out how to have, and it's not comfortable. But allowing them to sit in the news all day and let the inflammation build up in their bodies because they're just in complete apathy is not doing them any good either. So you're actually creating karma with them by allowing them to hurt themselves. And you're doing it because you love them. You see this conflict that we're in. Or you could take a couple of weeks and work on this, and everything will just start changing for you. One day Dad'd be like, you know what? That news sucks. I'm going to go for a walk. And things would just start changing. But you've got to face what you can't face, but you cannot face it through the world's mind. You've got to face it through God's mind. So your first thing, if you do not have that awareness of what true creator is, if you have wounding in the way, see, the world's mind will wound you from God. It'll make you feel separate. It'll make you feel unworthy. It'll make you feel like, well, once I get to heaven, then I can, feel this way and do this and talk to Jesus. But see, Jesus was just the mask of God. And so are you. You are made in the image. You have all of the infinite power. And because you have free will and choice, you can choose lack or you can choose abundance. Now, it's not as easy as just making that choice, because you have to go up to that flying zone where now you're in that, you're going to get there real fast and you're comfortable. Like, think about it. That plane is taking you 4,000 miles away, and all you're doing is figuring out how to occupy your time for 12, 13 hours. That's your only job on that flight. You're not flying the plane. You're not cooking the snacks, right? You're not doing any of that. You're sitting there trying to figure out how to occupy your inner child. That's what your life should look like when you're in that breezeway. But when we're in the turbulence, we're trying to figure out how to survive the push-pull of, I know I'm God logically, but my bank account says otherwise. Or I understand that we're all creators, but I can't beat this cancer. You see, so it's like those opposing beliefs. It's like the spiritual war that they're all talking about. It's like the devil and God itself are in a fight, and that's what turbulence is. And so if your life is in turbulence, you've actually raised above what's called grounding. Now, if you've ever been stuck on a plane, like you get on the plane, you get so excited and then you don't go anywhere. Have you guys ever experienced that? Right? Those close quarters start to feel really uncomfortable. Right? They're not serving drinks. They're not making you comfortable. They don't even have the air on half the time when they're waiting because they're fixing things. Okay. So when you're grounded, you are a total victim or perpetrator, because either you're yelling or whatever, of the stuck, locked. So look at your life where it's stuck, blocked, not moving. Okay. You don't know if you're supposed to get off the airplane or if you're going to change, but you don't have the information yet. You're in mystery. This is the bottom level of consciousness in the game. So you can tell when you get into the turbulence, you're actually alive. You're doing something. The energy is moving. Your job is to stop fighting against yourself. And again, the self-preservation. Stop fighting against who you think you are. Stop fighting against protecting yourself from whatever, fighting against the story, fighting against people, places, and things, avoiding certain things, because that energy is just as big as your ability to create, because you haven't gotten your God shoes on yet. You haven't done miracles yet. So you're actually more familiar with suffering. And so this much God and this much suffering are about equal. You see, so it's just like, that's why they said the mustard seed of faith. Like all you need is the mustard seed, because all you need to do is start practicing the mind of God and start wearing the shoes, wearing your garments, your moods. So how would God look at this situation here? How would my higher self look at this situation here? Now, if you don't have self-love, don't use higher self, because you won't love her either. Okay, maybe you love God more than higher self. Use that. It don't matter. Okay, you could even put an alien in that place if you wanted to praise that, as long as it was the same vibration as creator and love and life. But there is no in-between gods. That's the thing that I think the metaphysical community and the spiritual community gets stuck in the turbulence, is that we are studying all the different levels of God, the different dimensions constantly. And that's so fun, but that will keep you in turbulence. It's either all or nothing. That's the way it works with God. You are either all in or you're all out. You know what I mean? Like you're either grounded and you're trying to figure out how to survive, and you're stuck and no one's telling you what's going on. That's pretty much America, right? Or you're actually doing something about it and getting your hands dirty, and you're using the elbow grease to basically contradict your lower belief systems with your God mind. All right. So the way out of the turbulence is to literally pause, right? Don't brace yourself and hope it's going to be over by paying that bill, right? Give yourself a little bit of time before you respond, and don't respond to anything major, right? Time, relationships, health, or money through the world's mind, and you will stop building it. You guys have been wondering, how are we going to build this 5D reality? It's just a mind. It's a mind that is going to create and generate a reality, a new table read, a new set, a new skill set, but you cannot build it from the world's mind. You cannot work hard enough. You'll never be smart enough, right? Because even if you're smart enough, you'll become a slave to someone smarter. Okay, you get rich enough, that's a whole ugly game to get wealth down in the world's mind. That's scary. They start recruiting you for weird stuff when you get too much money in the world's mind. But if you just start looking at your prosperity, not about dollars, but about abundance of you, the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and see others as you, learning how to forgive. Like this is all prosperity. like learning how to forgive yourself, learning how to find that problem in you, right? Like Taylor Swift song, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, you know, like that's really where, if we could get that, then we would actually start beating the turbulence. But the reason why we can't beat the turbulence is because we will not take responsibility for the world's mind when we believe we're God. But you have to, because you participated, okay? And you built a life here. And you can't just be like, well, I'm God, so everybody else is the world's mind. You literally have to save every part of yourself from the world's mind, right? And then that's when you become creator. So the reason why we're going to be talking in the community today, the fellowship group, about moods, if you guys are in that group. The mood is, you guys, the biggest biohack, because you could be in a shit mood. You can. I know it's easy. Hormones, day, something doesn't go your way. There could be millions of circumstances that could create a bad mood. And a bad mood can get worse and worse and worse. And if left long enough, it gets recorded as a reality. And then the body basically rebuilds that. The subconscious focuses on that. And you'll have more of that, or at least it'll be in your storyline that that's your bad mood. Okay. Think about like PMS. Think about every month how you get. Okay. That's a mood that your body has saved that recycles based on a calendar. You could choose to not have that experience anymore, but you would have to unpack that mood. Okay. And then when it shows up over here, you don't go with it. I'm curious to see like how many of you guys are actually successfully hacking moods, because I'm finding it easy as long as I'm present. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not present, then it's a shit show. Like you go with it. You know, it feels good to feel bad. Like you simmer and you fester and you contemplate and you complain and you talk or you journal, or you could be like, okay, if I'm creating all of this, I can go into anger, I can go into resentment, I can go into judgment, or I can go wherever I choose right now. Okay. And that's where I would suggest that you go. And then when you're in a neutral vibe, you unpack the mood, you unpack the trigger when you're neutral. It's difficult to, unpack a trigger when your body is inflamed over the trigger. So you want to neutralize the trigger, and then you want to unpack it through God's mind. And, it's like, what would Jesus think of this situation? What would God think of this situation? What would my higher self think of this situation? Okay. What would all of creation, if all of this is creation, what is the purpose of this? And how is it serving me? And how is self-preservation keeping me from seeing this? How is self-preservation keeping me from taking responsibility of this? How is playing small keeping me safe? Okay, see, all of this has to be investigated, because when we look at the world's mind, success, like look at the world's mind and then the story of Jesus. Jesus was killed. Do we want to be Jesus from the world's mind? By one of his disciples. We all have that story. We have been personally attacked by someone we love. Okay, we have been judged by our intimate surroundings. We have been persecuted by our loved ones. That's the world story of Christ. Now, the God story is, no. I'm just dying on the cross, so you know that you're supposed to cross over and choose your own reality, so you don't have to keep playing Adam and Eve. And so I am the salvation. So you don't have to do that. You see? So from God's perspective, the story of Christ is like awesome. It's like, hey, we just inherited the earth. Thank you. Like that's God's story of the crucifixion. The world's story is, I don't want to get too spiritual. I'm going to end up on some cross. You see? And I don't want to get killed by my friends. Like the world's mind, you'll never go towards greatness in the world's mind, because the greater you become in the world, the more power you get, the less humanity you have, the more greedy you get. I mean, you know the stories. But see, when you're looking at it from God's mind, it's like, well, I could help everyone. I could feed people. I could change the world. I could build communities. You're not looking at what you're going to lose. When you look at money through the world's mind, you're scared to get more of it because what you're going to lose. Who can you trust? Like over the weekend, they were talking about this Mega Millions or whatever, and it's like 1.4 billion. And I threw this question out because this person was going to play is going through a really messy divorce. And I said, so is she going to get half of that? Right? If you win, like, I wanted to see where the mindset was. It's like, oh no, I'll put it in my dad's name. It's like, you already have it all figured out how to protect yourself from major wealth down here because someone's going to be out to get you. So you're going to have to unpack your world mind money story. And you're going to see how you are keeping yourself broke because you're actually scared to have true wealth here because there's too much adulting with it. Right? There's too much responsibility. It's too scary. Who's going to take it? Who's going to really like you? Okay. Like you're going to have to ask your ego why you're staying in that poverty grounded reality or constantly stuck in the turbulence. And then you would unpack it. Okay. So I think the focal point this week, and it'll pair up great with our next class because we're really going to start unpacking like moods and how to do it and how to do it more on a basic level. You guys are a little bit more advanced in this group, but being able to catch yourself. And then if you can alter your mood instantly, I don't care if you have to go change your clothes, whatever you need to do to become a different actor midday will probably eliminate a year off of this timeline for you. I don't care how angry you are. I don't care what they did. I don't care what they said. I don't care how much money you owe. If you can change your mood, the garment that you are wearing, and feel what you would prefer instead as the wish fulfilled, which means if I already had this solution, if this was already fixed, if I already had what I needed, if I was already doing what I love, that's the mood you create. Then when you move into a neutral space, you unpack why that keeps happening. Who is at my table? Okay? Because money is a table part, is a reading from the table. Money, the dollar bill is holding the script going, well, this is your story. And I have to play your villain. And then it comes back to you. And you see, it could be a house, it could be a car, it could be a cancer. It's not just people at your table. It's obstacles, it's challenges, it's limitations. Think about any given movie that you've ever seen. The middle is always turbulent, isn't it? It starts off with a dream. It's quirky, right? It starts to build up. You start getting excited about it and then crash. Turbulence begins. And then they begin to master the situation for the most part. Like try to think of a movie that has no middle turbulence. It would not create that emotional stimulation for you to awaken or grow or have a victory. And so the same plot is here in the world's mind, except in the world's mind, like, have you ever watched like a rom-com and like happily ever after? You're like, yeah, until they live together. They're not going to show what happens a year later because that's not going to work, right? But that's the world's mind. See, on God's mind, why wouldn't it work? If you can work through your triggers and your traumas, why wouldn't any relationship work? You know what I mean? Like everything would work. You could find someone off the street and become soulmates with them if you were in God's mind, and it would be perfect. It wouldn't even be about the laundry list of criteria that the self-preservation ego needs in order to look good. Like you don't need that storyline, right? So in this opportunity, don't believe me, go watch 4 different movies from 4 different genres, and it's all the same. Even the horror movie gets worse in the middle. Okay. It's like all of a sudden everyone's dying, right? Well, where are we in mankind right now? We are in the middle. Okay. We are in the deciding point where people are going to be like, I don't like this. Some people are going to be sitting and breathing and holding themselves and saying everything's going to be great. And then there's the people that they're freaking the F out who need attention. Oh my God. I know you've been on a plane and it's been turbulent and there's someone who needs to be seen and heard, right? And they're like, oh my God. And now everybody's attention is going to her or him. Okay. And a lot of times we like this because then I'm not scared of my own turbulence. I can judge her. I'm not terrified for my life because, oh my God, she's making a fool of herself. And this is what we do in mankind, is I'm not going to judge my turbulence. I'm going to judge hers because she's making a spectacle out of herself. But I might be calling for Jesus in my seat. I'm just not speaking it. So the things you're judging are actually the things that you're doing somewhere, or the things that you don't want to do, that you have done or have been done to you, that you're afraid are going to resurface, right? Think about the idea of being famous and then saying, okay, now all your past is going to come out. Everybody's going to know everything about you. No, thanks. It's easier to just get cancer and get a whole bunch of attention from that than actually be successful, right? I was talking to somebody, and I mean, God bless her. She figured out a way to stay sick for like 3 years and just made like 80 grand off of it. Like, you know what I mean? It was like from like, workman's comp and like, and then this, and I'm like, well, damn girl, you're figuring it out. But what happens when you're not sick anymore? You know what I mean? So you have to understand that illness is a character in your movie, and it's self-preserving you somehow. It's keeping you safe somehow. Being broke is a character in your movie that somehow it makes you have more gumption, or it makes you have to try harder, or it makes you help more people, or it helps you be more compassionate. Do you really want it, or do you want to just have it all? So if you're stuck on the God's mind, like, reach out, because there's so many great authors out there and speakers, especially from like early 1900s, like 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, all the way into the 70s. And they were really talking about the Christ consciousness. Okay, we got Emmett Fox, we've got Neville Goddard, we've got Reverend Ike, right? I mean, you just like, you hear this stuff and you're just like, this is the Christed mind. And it's all about positive imagination of life. The world's mind is negative emotion and imagination of surviving. So when you're imagining a scenario that could happen, you're in the world's mind creating a reality. Even if you're just going, well, what happens if this bill comes and this bill comes and this bill comes? Even though you think that you're in self-preservation and protecting yourself from what could happen, you're actually using the presence of God to imagine and assume a negative scenario to protect yourself. And that is considered responsible here. Okay? Well, then what if I turn my back and I don't think about it and then it attacks me, right? That's what you're going to say. But see, if you spend time in your positive imagination, in your God mind, it can happen, because the characters at your table will change. But you're going to have to meet your cheater. You're going to have to meet your liar. You're going to have to meet your villain. You're going to have to meet the disgusting monster inside of you. But if you meet them with God's mind, it won't be bad at all, because they're just you trying to stay alive. Okay, so focus on that this week, as about pausing. Do not participate. Change your mood, change your clothes, right? Try to completely flip the program upside down by having the opposite mood, right? It's not going to be easy at first. You can biohack it with changing your clothes, listening to music, putting your favorite movie on, pulling out your favorite book, going for a walk. This is not the time to call someone, talk to someone. But you know what? If you put Neville on, or you put Emmett Fox in the background, or me, or someone who is going to make you feel like, okay, like that's the voice that I want in my consciousness right now, great. That's just helping you. That's assistant. But you're not doing anything wrong. You're just running a program. You don't need to study more. You just need to change your mood. So whatever changes the mood, okay? So you got to make sure you're not hangry, you're not tired, because these are all going to affect your moods, because God's #1 frequency is I am satisfied. That's the true God consciousness. Satisfied. Job well done. I'm not hungry. I'm not full. I'm satisfied. Peace. That's the mind of God. You see, so all the wishes are already fulfilled in the mind of God. There's no wanting. There's no needing. So I would say the need is grounded. That's the ego, right? What about me? We've been sitting here forever. When are we going to get there, right? Then you've got the turbulence, which is God's mind and the ego's mind at war, and then you'll move up. And once you're there, there will be one God, there will be one focus, there will be one creator, and you will never go without again, and nor will anyone around you. There will be no more conflicts in your life. There will be no more sickness in your life. There will be no sickness at your table. Okay, so it's not that hard, but it's going to take tons of discipline, a lot of routine, very consistent, and presence. But what else are you going to do? Because I know if you're like me, you're sick of the turbulence. You're sick of how strong your ego is against how strong your God is. And it starts to feel like you get stuck in the grounding position. But then some of you go up to the God consciousness for a few days, right? But that just resurrects all the dark stuff. And then you fall down and you think, oh, am I doing something wrong? No, you're not. You're not. Like every single thing you're doing that is keeping you in turbulence means you're taking action. So stop judging yourself if your life feels turbulent in certain areas. Now, if you're completely grounded, you might want to back up and look at certain things. You know, like I'm not participating here at all, or I'm participating too much and I'm giving this problem too much energy. Because remember, like attention flows, right? Where energy goes. So focusing on a problem is not responsible. Focusing on why the problem was created is responsible. Changing the mood because you're going to change the biochemistry. The reason why we change the mood in the bad mood is to biohack the cell, okay? To make the body go, wait, we're not going with this problem. We're happy. Oh, it must be figured out. And if it's figured out, well, then I can manifest through my electromagnetic sensories. You see, so if you keep your body thinking that everything is figured out, eventually it's going to get figured out. You're just going to have to become a better actor. That's it. All right. So that's all I have today for you guys. And if you're going to tune in today, Susan, I'm going to get with you about something that I had an idea with. I'll message you about something I would love for you to create if you're interested. And everybody else, I'll see you guys in the group class. We're going to be basically kind of like talking about this mood idea from a place to biohack the present moment, how to unpack it, and then hear from you guys as well. And then otherwise, good luck with this. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully you got some nuggets here, but it's really about just me, myself, and I, and making sure that you are choosing what you are participating in, bottom line, and not having to go along with what everyone else is just because they're there. Eventually you will get different versions of the people you love in your life that won't be riddled with sickness. The news won't be on, but it's actually going to start from here. Okay. All right, guys. Love you. See you soon. Bye.